Hi guys, come out to you a little bit of a different painting video today. I'm not going to go through all the paintbrush stroke steps and all that. I'm just going to give you an overview of the process going all the way through it. So here we have the Ripperdactyl riders that we assembled a little bit ago, and they were primed. I'll show you how I primed them with the Pteranodon rider. So I did a Xandri dust for most of the body. And see, is that kind of like tannish, darker or lighter tan, and then a wraith bone on top. And this is called a zenithal highlighting. It helps you when you paint the natural tones to be brighter on top and darker on the bottom. So you have already building in shade, make it a little bit easier on yourself. So then we started off with the bodies. I did a bright red strip down the middle of Mephiston red, and you have all these paints right behind you. You can see kind of a little bit in order I'm going to talk about. So bright red yellow, or bright red, a strip down the middle of Mephiston red, and then I transitioned to a corn red on the arms and the undersides, so a darker red. Then Jokero orange for the wings and the underside of the wings. We have Morghast bone for the teeth and the claws, which I'm going to get to these teeth on these other guys in a second. Averland sunset for the eyes. Stegodon green for the eyes. So you have a bead right there. I also have another bead on there for the design and decoration. Corax white for the feathers. Then Balthazar gold for the collar. Now, as you can tell right now, these guys are very plain. There's not much to them. There's no obviously there's no details. I haven't gotten to that step yet. But I want to reiterate to new painters and even some old painters, your stuff doesn't look great right away. That's the process of painting that comes with it, is that patience to build on those highlights, build on the shading to make these models look so cool. So one of the things I had a hard time with when I first started painting was, wow, this model looks terrible, and I just spent 2 hours on it. And that's because it's just got your base coat done. There's more and more to layer on. And these are all specifically base paints from the Citadel line. Like I said, I have all these army painters. I'm still not used to them yet, but they're beautiful paints. I'm getting more and more used to incorporating them into my lines of painting. But these base paints are generally there to help you have a thicker coat, so that way they paint on better. You still need to thin them down so they don't get chunky, but they allow for these layer paints and lighter paints to be a bit more transparent, so this color will poke through those, not poke through, but like giving another, it's almost like you're mixing paints, but not. It's the paint layer below still expressing itself below a new layer of paint. And those base paints are great for that. So now we're going to get onto the shading steps, which I'm going to do with a few different things. Alright, now these guys are shaded, and actually I did a little bit something different. I want to try it out. Was I used contrast paint for shading. One of the reasons why I wanted to do this was that I did use 2 different tones of red on the bodies, so I wanted those kind of tones to merge together a little more. And I wanted to darken up the wings a little bit more, because I'm going to do a little dry brushing on them to bring out like a pattern on the wings a little bit. And then for the final, for the teeth and the claws, I used skeleton horde. So you can see we had the Griffhound orange, the Flesh Terrors red, and the skeleton horde. Let me get that focus. Skeleton horde on the claws. I also did that on the feathers as well, because I wanted that little bit of brown darkness, brown shading. So now it's the steps where we apply highlights and details and designs to make this model really pop out. So for the first initial highlight, I wanted to focus on the wings, because I'm going to be doing designs of them later, so I figured I'd get that out now. So what I did was I did a lot of dry brushing over almost the whole area with Trollslayer orange, and then I would, so almost the whole wing with Trollslayer orange, and then I would go a little further down and I would do Fire Dragon Bright. And the very last I did Lugganath orange for the last little dry brush on the edges. So I'm progressively getting lighter as I go further down, and it gives this really cool gradient. Up close is not as pretty, but from afar, which we can see, it does add this little color gradient to the models. So the next step I'm going to do is going to highlight the body, probably do another dry brushing in red. Now what I like is that contrast paints kind of make these kind of shiny. That's one that I've noticed I need to work on, or just kind of go back to my classic methods. But the dry brushing really took the shine out of the contrast paint that was on the wings. So it looks a lot more natural again. So again, now we're going to focus on the red of the body. Alright, so for the bodies we did a dry brushing of Evil Sunz Scarlet and Wild Rider Red. So you can tell with Evil Sunz Scarlet, it just made those details a little pop out a little better. And the Wild Rider Red did that much more. And for the Wild Rider Red, I focused on the top parts. And then like the scales and the ridges. I left the rest as Evil Sunz Scarlet. And like kind of more scales in there. I didn't want to draw too much to those, like, you know, basic areas. I wanted the scales to pop out a little more. See a really nice little like defined highlights on that skull. And again, it looks dusty up front, but like farther away, it blends into a really cool looking model. Alright, so we did a little bit more highlighting in some of the detail areas. I did a yellow to make the eyes a little bit brighter. Follow that with a the Vallejo black just to make that pupil dot or pupil slit. To the temple guard to do the beads on the models of the decorative beads. I then did a shanty bone on all the bone pieces and claws. Doing a little bit of highlight on those claws. Take away also any areas that I might have touched with the dry brush. I was able to get rid of that. And then I did a pink horror on like the little mouth, like on the sides of the mouth, like where there's like fleshy bits in the tongue. So much more lifelike now. And we're going on a little bit more details from here. And also, I forgot to shade the metal collars, and so I did that. Now I'm just waiting for that to dry. All right, so we did a few more details, kind of highlighting. We finished off the gold on the collars and the highlighted portions. And what also I did is I took a very thinned down Gorthor brown with used the thinner medium from Vallejo. I made it very watery and I like dotted along the wings to kind of get a little bit spotted pattern. Just a little more to make it more seem lifelike. It's not a perfect pattern. It's patterns in the wings. Just want to add a little extra detail to that wing just to make it look more alive. So with that, these Ripper fans are basically done for the most part. They're highlighted up, base coat, all the details. I just now have to do the riders. Alright, so I worked on these skink riders for the Ripperdactyls. And I actually did a little bit of the pterodon riders as well. Because I was using, and I'll go through all my paints on that, and since I use a lot more paints with these guys than in my Ripperdactyls, I'll show some, but for the most part I'm just going to describe them. I'll give you like the, hey, this is like Citadel, or hey, this is Army Painter, or hey, this is Reaper, which I generally don't use Reaper because their paints are kind of crappy. I think they're designed for their models, and their models are pre-primed or something. So I did a mixture of Citadel contrast paint, and I actually did Millisfarm Green and Agros Dune, basically 3 drops of each, and then I did 3 drops of this contrast medium to thin it out a little bit to get like this greenish tan skin tone. I wanted them not to be entirely tan, not entirely green. I want that light color. Like again, I'm going for a plainsy kind of look. And so because I had extra, I didn't want to waste paint, I did pterodon riders as well. Ta-da. But you see and notice that my leaders are different. I have 2 pale ones, and I'm thinking that the more I'm painting, I'm developing a theme for my guys. I'm kind of bummed I didn't have this when I painted my big Troglodon, because he's like the colors of a normal skink, and I kind of wish I had done him pale like I'm doing for my Star Priest and I'm doing for these guys. I'm thinking my army has a higher rate of these guys destined for greatness that will fight the Hordes of Chaos better. So I did the Rakarth flesh for the skin, because that did work out well last time, and I'm going to shade it differently. I did greedy gold for the headdress, skeleton horde which is a contrast paint for the feathers. The greedy gold is an army painter paint. For the back, I did lava orange, army painter as well. For the red, I did flesh terrors red. It's a contrast paint. I'm going to touch up a few areas. Balthazar gold for the pike or the shaft part of the weapon, and black temper for the weapon itself. And I just did that for each of the models. And this guy, I did a skeleton horde on the blade, and everyone got their toes painted in Morghast bone. And skeleton horde is also a contrast. Though I'm doing the Ripperdactyls, I'm not going to show the painting of the pterodons. I will show you guys the painting of the flame. I'll go through each of the bits process, and actually this one I'll break a little from this style, and I'll show you how I'm doing it. And the shields were just Flesh Terrors red, Morghast bone, and again that Balthazar gold on the trim. So again, these models they're colored, they're bright, and the contrast paint has helped out like define some of the areas. But now they're still kind of bland. So again, I'm going to get into the shading, and after the shading, we will do the highlights. All right, so the shading is mostly done on these guys. I started to try the black scales with a Fugan orange shade, but this wasn't giving me the definition I wanted. So I basically did most of the body in the gold in Agrax Earth shade, including the paler ones, and I did some of their feathers as well. I did a Crimson Carabog, or Carabog Crimson, for that little arm piece. It's a little bit more definition. Did Reichland Flesh Shade for the helmet of this guy, and I'm going to do like jewels for his eyes. I have some technical paint I want to try out. And I did. Actually, it was actually the only two really used. It was the only really two used. So it was a relatively simple process. Going back over now, like this is where the real, to me, the fun part begins, the highlighting process. All right, so I got a lot of work done in getting them, picking out the details and doing all the colors and all that for highlighting. So I'm gonna go through a lot. I had a lot of colors, so bear with me while I try to go through each one. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start with one model and just basically what I explain what it is. So I highlighted the skin for these green guys with a striking green. Striking green. It's a layer paint from Citadel. For all these arms, I did a Evil Sun Scarlet dry brush and then a Wild Rider red dry brush to kind of pick out just the tops of those scales. The gold helmets all have Gehenna gold on them. The backs, I did Troll Slayer orange and then a Fire Dragon bright. Basically, Troll Slayer orange are all the scales on the back, or try to all the scales, and then a Fire Dragon bright on the middle scales. See, I also did like these. I did the shields as well. For the bone pieces, I did Ushabti. I think I've been saying that wrong. Ushabti, like the toes and these claws. Ushabti bone, and then Screaming Skull. And for my pale guys, I actually did a little bit different. I highlighted the skin with a little bit of a mixture of Pallid Witch Flesh and Rakarth Flesh, the original paint tone. So I wanted to brighten up the paint tone in a realistic way. Like, I was going to use another whiter color, but like Pallid Witch Flesh just has a natural tone to it. And I did the same thing for the back of these guys. And the feathers, I did Ulthuan Gray as Pallid Witch Flesh as the lines for the feathers, and then Tuscarora fur for the beginning part, and then Gorthor brown for the end tip. For the weapon, I just made sure it was Black Templar black. Let's get that close. And I did that swirl with Temple Guard and a little bit dry brushing of the Harath blue to make it glow. Still Gehenna gold on him. Let's see. And then that's really about it. The biggest difference for this guy over here, though, is I did his eyes in a Waystone. Oh, let me get that camera. Waystone green to make that gem effect. And basically, what that does is I painted up Shining Silver, which is one of the new, not new, but new for me, Army Painter paints. And then I put that waystone green and just dragged it up, or I'm sorry, dragged it down so that the most paint's at the top and little paint's at the bottom, so it creates a gem effect. So I want this guy to have like a very cool mask. And again, Screaming Skull and Ushabti Bone for the bone blade. So all these guys have been highlighted in detail. Oh, I got also did more yellow on the eyes and little black dots for the eyeballs. So now I'm actually going to glue them to the bases. Alright, so they're glued to their mounts and they're glued to their bases. And I did the bases separately because there was a lot of different processes. I'll go through it real quick. The basic is the basic base, which is like the temple part was a Xandri Dust, Agrax Earthshade, and then more Xandri Dust. I did Cygor Brown for like the dead vines. And the ground itself was a Grelin Earth and a Grelin Badland from the Citadel, like technical line. And it makes like the Grelin Earth makes like these nice cracks. You notice right there? It's got those very cool cracks in the ground. There you go. The Badlands is kind of like a dirty look, and then shade those Agrax Earthshade, and then dry brush them Xandri Dust to bring it back up. And then the little grass things are from Army Painter Wasteland. And I got some extra skulls from the Citadel line that has extra skulls. I got some cork there for like that kind of like sunken rock in the water. In the water I have a resin Vallejo, or not Vallejo, I'm sorry. Take a look. Oh, actually no, it is Vallejo water texture, still water. I mixed a little bit of Cygor or Plague Bringer and Agro's Dunes to get that dirty look to it. It also has a corn skull in there as well. My guys are all about hating on the chaos, and that's what I wanted. And so, like the main guy, his base is a little bit higher, and he's also pale, so it's easier to distinguish him. So I'll give you guys a look now what these guys look like individually on their bases. So this is the model all together. I'll give you guys a last shot of them. Like one last shot, but then a little bit closer up view. Alright, so you're going to get a little bit of my workspace here. So I apologize for the sterness and all the projects on it, but so I'll get you this view of, here we go, this guy flying in. His Ripperdactyl poison ready, his blade, a jade green ready to cut down chaos. You have this guy flying behind him, this blue serpent filled with magical energy ready to strike at his foes. With the main leader directing them all in their bestial ferocity towards an enemy. But hey, I appreciate you guys coming on this journey with me of painting and seeing my process and how it turns out. If you would like and subscribe, if you want to keep seeing these. I know they have a bell option too. I don't update frequently, so that might help you when I was like, hey, Sean updated what? So that way you'll be able to know. So again, thank you all for joining me. This has been a pleasurable experience. I'm happy you're able to see this, and hopefully this one isn't too long, and you can enjoy it a little bit in smaller bits. So you all have a great day.